The town experienced by the two sky lovers in Africa was a beautiful yet distorted, uninhabited world ruled by frozen time and absolute silence. A desperate wandering in search of the truth brought about by a momentary fall. Now, the door to Thomas's Wonderland quietly opens. The soft morning sun of California bathes the beautiful tree-lined streets of Cameron Park in a golden glow. This is no ordinary residential neighborhood. The roads are as wide as runways, and private airplanes rest their wings in the front yards, looking ready to take off into the sky at any moment. A special sanctuary where only those who love the sky gather. Geologist Thomas, grabbing his favorite bag as usual, opened his familiar front door to head to his university lecture. "Good morning, Thomas!" A bouncing voice echoed from behind, tearing through the crisp morning air. Turning around, there stood his childhood friend Grace, with a bright smile illuminated by the morning sun. Her eyes held an unfounded expectation for the day ahead. At this moment, the two could never have dreamed that in a few months they would become lost in space-time, destined to be thrown out of all the physical laws of the world. The two started walking side by side. Grace is a highly capable surgeon, equipped with calm and collected judgment. She and Thomas have an inseparable bond, knowing each other's weaknesses since childhood. "You're full of energy today, too." "I'm always full of energy. Looking energetic is a doctor's first duty to reassure patients." Exchanging such casual conversation, the two headed towards their respective battlefields, known as their fields of expertise. Standing at the university podium, chalk in hand, in his suit, is Thomas. As a geologist, he faces the endless accumulation of time spanning hundreds of millions of years. Listening to the Earth's faint heartbeat and unraveling the stories of invisible strata. That is his life's work, and his passionate lectures were always overflowing with the enthusiasm of students seeking the unknown. Around the same time, in the tense atmosphere of the General Hospital, Grace, wearing a white coat, was facing a monitor. Her sharp skills as a surgeon and her passionate disposition to embrace the pain of her patients. She has saved countless lives and was an indispensable presence that everyone in the hospital relied upon. On the weekend, Grace visited Thomas, who was engrossed in maintenance with tools in hand, the engine cowl of his beloved plane open. "Are you going somewhere far away again?" Thomas answered amidst the smell of oil. "Yes, the east coast of Africa. Recently, an inexplicable, strange distortion of the strata has been observed deep beneath that plateau. I have to see it with my own eyes." Hearing those words, Grace's eyes sparkled mischievously. "Sounds interesting. Take me with you." "It's a 2-week tent life, you know. No showers, no beds." "That's nothing new. Don't underestimate my stamina." Considering their past adventures, a harsh outdoor life is nothing more than a familiar routine. A capable scientist and a life-saving surgeon. Pressed by her repeated enthusiasm, her accompaniment on the journey to explore the rifts of the African continent was quietly decided. Clutching their passports, the two left the hustle and bustle of Los Angeles Airport. Their destination, Moi International Airport in Kenya. A long 23-hour flight. The sea of night clouds, visible from the cabin window, spread out eerily endlessly, as if foreshadowing the deviation from their everyday lives that was about to begin. The overwhelming African sun burned their skin the moment they arrived. Their adventurous spirits were violently shaken by the dry heat of the land they visited for the first time, and the unique smell that radiated the strength of life. It was overflowing with a wild energy that could never be experienced in their refined American life. What a friend from their flying circle had specially prepared for their research was a rugged yet highly reliable silver VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, aircraft. "Hey, can you really fly this thing?" "Leave it to me. I've been playing with the flight simulator for this model since I was a student until I was sick of it." Thomas checked the feel of the control stick and began preparations for takeoff. Packing the equipment and food necessary for the research, they took off. From the window of the ascending aircraft, a spectacular view of the savannah stretching to the horizon spread out below them. However, Thomas's expression remained clouded. He was following the numbers on the instruments with a serious gaze. "Let's start the research as soon as we arrive. Something is happening at the bottom of that rift valley." According to recent satellite data, the crustal movement in this area is far deviating from normal figures. I must directly collect data quickly and report it to the academic society. Ambition and a sense of duty as a scientist. But tragically, at this time, they did not yet know. They were now destined to be swallowed by a merciless rift in spacetime and lose the place they should return to. The two landed the aircraft on a lonely cape surrounded by dense jungle that wasn't even on the map. Before them spread a spectacular view woven by the azure sea and steep cliffs. It was so beautiful that, for some unknown reason, tears welled up in their eyes. Perhaps it was an unconscious farewell ritual to the Earth they knew. At this time, the collapse energy holding spacetime together was already about to reach its critical point. While watching the sinking sunset, Grace began preparing dinner next to the tent. Meanwhile, Thomas, hurrying his research, stepped into the depths of the forest, filled with a stifling heat. The surroundings were eerily quiet, as if an invisible presence was vibrating the air with a warning not to come any closer. Deep inside the dense, gloomy jungle, Thomas, with trembling hands, held out a Geiger counter and a magnetometer. The initially calm waveforms and numbers were within permissible limits. It was the moment he looked at that data and felt a wave of relief. Suddenly, a piercing warning sound mercilessly tore through the silence of the forest. The needle of the measuring instrument went off the scale, breaking through the red zone. Deep underground, a massive energy, defying the laws of physics, bared its fangs and began to erupt towards the surface. However, his sense of duty as a scientist suppressed his instinct to flee, tying him to that spot. Thomas, returning to the tent with a pale face, shouted in a voice that couldn't hide his agitation, "Grace, the Earth is screaming! The energy density of this place is beyond our understanding. This is dangerous. Let's get out of here right now." His words held an unprecedented sense of urgency. But, faced with the spectacular view they had finally reached, Grace pleaded, "Please, let us camp here, just for tonight." For her, who is constantly in a state of tension as a surgeon, the silence of this night was an irreplaceable comfort. To her repeated and desperate pleas, Thomas reluctantly nodded, carrying a bitter premonition. "All right, but only for tonight. As soon as dawn breaks, we leave." The two spent a peaceful, fleeting moment gathering around the campfire, watching the crackling flames. The African night was enveloped in a deep darkness that seemed to swallow everything. Eventually, when Grace stood up to feel the sea breeze slightly and disappeared into the darkness with a flashlight in hand, the cruel gears of fate began to spin violently. For some reason, an unsettling premonition gripped her chest. Chasing after her, Thomas hurriedly grabbed a flashlight and rushed into the night forest. "You can't go there! There's no turning back past that point!" He thought he heard a voice, like a warning, mixed with the sound of the wind. But right now, the only thing reaching his ears was the sound of his own heartbeat, anxious for his beloved friend. Finding Grace's back, as she quietly stared at the sea from the edge of the cliff, Thomas breathed a sigh of relief. However, at that moment, a low, cold voice echoing, "You must not go there," reverberated around them again. "Who is it? Who's there?" He illuminated the surroundings with his flashlight, but there were only eerily swaying shadows of trees, with absolutely no sign of anyone else.
Hold on.
The next moment, a massive energy pulverized the bedrock, and the two were swallowed by a dimensional vortex. The shock of the violent collision and an endless sensation of falling. How much time had passed, or was it a momentary event? Having lost consciousness, the two were washed ashore on a cold, sandy beach. When they finally awoke, what they saw was an inorganic, sandy beach spreading out at the water's edge below the steep cliff where they were supposed to be camping. Despite falling from the top of the cliff, let alone major injuries, the two shuddered at their own bodies, strangely without a single scratch on their clothes. This situation, inexplicable both medically and physically. While enveloped in an unshakable anxiety, they had not yet realized that they had wandered into an alternate world, similar yet different from the Earth they knew. After breakfast, while chatting in the tent, a decisive sense of wrongness struck the two of them. The engine sounds of the fishing boats that had been heard in the distance until last night, and the hustle and bustle of cars driving on the distant highway, had all vanished as if it were a lie. What existed there was an eerie, perfect domination of silence, as if even the sound of the wind had been sucked away. The 4 letters NO signal ruthlessly blinked on the screen of the laptop Thomas opened to check. Even when he took out his smartphone, all the apps were silent, and the antenna mark was dead. Had that tremendous energy emission last night completely destroyed the surrounding communication infrastructure? Having completely lost all means of communication, the two could no longer endure the isolation of information. Anyway, let's head to a village and buy a new smartphone, or ask someone for help. Having made that decision, the two decided to head to their aircraft without waiting for the sun to reach its zenith. Driven by a sense of urgency, Thomas booted up the measuring instrument once more. However, the numbers displayed on the monitor told them that the silence up until earlier had been nothing more than the calm before the storm. A blaring warning alarm echoed furiously. The values on the graph began to rise at an almost vertical angle. "Grace, we must evacuate immediately. An energy emission like last night is going to happen again. If we stay here, we won't survive this time." At Thomas's shout, Grace reflexively closed the hatch of the aircraft. Fortunately, their beloved silver aircraft had suffered no fatal damage. Preparations for takeoff were complete, and the aircraft ascended vertically. "It's okay. Once we get to the town, we can get whatever we need," Grace said, hiding her agitation as if to convince herself, and once again soared into the unknown sky on silver wings. The cityscape looked down upon from the sky was, at first glance, peaceful and beautiful. Orderly buildings and well-maintained roads. However, there was not a single car driving there, and not a shadow of a child playing in the park. Nor even the slightest hint of people living their lives could be confirmed from above. Thomas felt dizzy, feeling as if he were looking down at a massive movie set. The cityscape looked down upon from the sky was, at first glance, peaceful and beautiful. Orderly buildings and well-maintained roads. However, there was not a single car driving there, and not a shadow of a child playing in the park. Nor even the slightest hint of people living their lives could be confirmed from above. Thomas felt dizzy, feeling as if he were looking down at a massive movie set. When they timidly stepped into a nearby general store, the merchandise was neatly arranged on the shelves as if waiting for the owner's return. It was a bizarre sight, where only the existence of humans had fallen out like a missing puzzle piece. No matter how long they continued to watch the street outside, they never encountered a single human being. The old clock hanging on the wall of the store had also stopped its heartbeat, pointing to noon. It was as if the very physical concept of time had been stripped away from this realm, losing all meaning. This was a town enveloped in a silence deeper than death, where not even the ticking of a second hand was permitted. Not a single breeze blew. A bizarre heat seemed to cling to their skin. Facing the trembling Grace, terrified, Thomas could not find the words to answer her. That abnormal energy he felt in that forest yesterday, it was persistently tracking and watching them. The moment he thought they had to evacuate, a cold voice echoing, "Go back," resonated directly in his brain from nowhere. "Grace, I'm sorry. As a scientist, I can't explain what is happening at all either. Unscientific phenomena that seemed to mock his own knowledge and pride. But right now, the only thing he knew for sure was that staying here meant death. They had to return to their sanctuary, Cameron Park, as quickly as possible." The two boarded the aircraft again and headed for Moi International Airport, believing there were survivors. However, the world visible ahead of where they pointed the nose of the plane was too far removed from the scenery they knew. Would there still be the light of human activity left there? A sky of bizarre colors. Can they escape from this wonderland? The adventure full of mysteries has only just begun. Next time, what awaits them are further bizarre physical phenomena that betray even gravity itself. Will Thomas ever be able to return to his beloved hometown, Cameron Park? With the addition of a new traveler from another dimension, Condor, the story plunges even deeper into Wonderland.